Okay, this is the presentation for Computers 101, the first part, which is hardware. If you were not in class, then this is the best way to get the information. All right. So this, if you believe it or not, is the first Apple computer. Back then when Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were building these in Steve Jobs' parents' garage, I mean, they couldn't use plastic, right? They didn't have anything to like mold. So yeah, of course it was made out of wood. And the person was responsible for their own monitor. Well, if this is a computer, and if the laptop you're watching this on is a computer, and if your phone is a computer, then like what is a computer? It seems like we have a lot of things that act as that. The best simple definition of a computer is it's a data processing machine. So information comes in or data comes in, it gets processed, and then it kicks back out. And if you think about it, your PlayStation 4, your TV, you've got computer components in your car, in your microwave. They really are ubiquitous, which means everywhere. There are different types of computers. The first one, probably our favorite, the handhelds. That includes all the phones and tablets. The next one is a laptop or a notebook. And then we have our desktops, which are more powerful, and people use them a lot of times for gaming or for video editing. Then we have a server, which is responsible for storing files that other people can access. So like web servers hold the web pages so we can all see them. The cool lit one is a supercomputer, very fast, lot of high-end processes going on there. And then we have a workstation. Sometimes at someone's job, there's expensive software or hardware that they don't want to give to everyone, so you just would log in, do your work, and then log out and go back to your computer, go back to your office with your cheap computer. So that's a workstation. And then sometimes big corporations need lots of users to access the same stuff at the same time, and the cloud isn't really secure, so they will use a mainframe. All right, before we look at the inside, let's look at the things we connect to a computer. These are called peripheral devices, and these really are what make the computer usable and something we like to use. So you don't have to, actually we're going to skip this game since you're not here. So an input device turns human language into machine language. So any device you use to put information into a computer, like a keyboard, a mouse, a microphone, a scanner, a camera, all of these are input devices. A game controller, a little tablet that you like draw on, like one of those bamboo ones. All of these input devices. When the computer needs to talk to us, it uses an output device. So this translates the machine language back into human language. So like the screen or a projector, speakers for sound, a printer for something printed, even something like vibrating mechanism, right? That's telling you have an alert. LED lights can flash if you have notifications. That would be an output device. So anytime the computer is communicating to you, it is using an output device. All right, let's look at the inside. This is called, on a desktop, the system unit, the part you plug all this stuff into. And inside we have a lot of different things, but one part that we're looking at in particular is called the motherboard. And on that is a CPU. This is the central processing unit. We also call it a microprocessor. And this is really what does all the processing. That's its job. It processes the data. This is like the computer's brain. So if you have a powerful computer, it's because you have a powerful CPU. If you don't, well, you probably need a new one. An example of a CPU, the Intel is a company that makes them. Right now they have one called an i7, right? That's one that you could get in a computer. Typically, the faster the CPU, the faster your computer works, and speed is everything because really it's just doing operations per second. So the more operations it can do, the more powerful it is. Right now, CPUs run at about 2 to 3 gigahertz. That's 2 to 3 billion operations per second. And we're kind of plateauing here, but what they can do is they can really make the architecture of the CPU work faster than older ones with similar speeds. They'll also put more than one core in. So a quad or an octo core would have 4 or 8. You could have 16. So just depending on how much you're spending and what you need it for, right, you can have pretty powerful CPUs. All right, so if we were to construct a computer right now, based on our knowledge, we have the microprocessor, the CPU in the middle, so that's processing the data. And then we have input devices, which get our data into the CPU. And then once it's been processed, it needs to communicate back out to us. So we have output devices, which do that. And that's pretty much how every computer works, if you think about it, right? You touch a touch screen to give it some input, something happens, and then you see it on the screen. So this works, but the CPU can't really remember anything. And so we need some memory to really make it work. And we have main memory, 2 types, which helps our computer to operate. That's main memory's job, to allow the computer to operate. First type is RAM, random access memory, and its job is to allow the programs to run. So right now you're typing in notes, but you haven't saved, so why is it still being saved? Because RAM is constantly saving, and then when you do finally go to file save, it will move it into secondary memory. So every program needs memory to run. That's RAM's job. So typically, more is better, right? As each new type of program comes out, they usually require more and more RAM because they want things to look even better and be able to do more things. So, if you're going to buy a computer, spending, a little bit more on RAM is usually not a bad thing. ROM stands for read-only memory, and its job is to boot up the computer. So when you push power, something needs to know what to do. That's ROM's job. It's a series of tasks that the computer has to roll through, or instructions, and then when it's done, you're ready to do it. So typically you don't want your ROM to change. Unless you have like an Android phone, sometimes people will root it or rewrite those instructions so that it boots up in a different manner. It's dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, because if you can't, if your phone can't boot up at all, then it really isn't worth anything. Secondary memory is job to store our data. So main memory gets the computer to run. Secondary memory is all of our stuff, our pictures, our videos, our text files. And there's 3 types of secondary memory. First one is called magnetic. This is very cheap. It's used as, in hard drives all over the place. And, like Google and Facebook and, these places with tens of thousands of servers, they're going to use magnetic because it's just so inexpensive. Optical, like CDs and DVDs, the thing that's great about those is they just last forever if you take care of them. They're not going to degrade on their own, but it takes a long time to burn CDs and DVDs, so that usually isn't our first choice. And then flash. Flash is more expensive, but it's fast, and there aren't any moving parts, so it's pretty reliable. And we are starting to see more and more flash. Flash is definitely in your phone and in your laptop, but as the price comes down, we're starting to see it replace magnetic for hard drives in desktops, that you would go to the store and buy. All right, so now we can really finish our computer. So we've got main memory, that talks to the CPU, right? That's where the CPU is storing its information. And then we will take things out of main memory and stick them into secondary memory. That way we have them long term. All right, so hopefully you don't have any holes. You don't have a neighbor if you are doing this at home. But that is the end of today's.